This is the second episode of the Animators Challenge, a video series where I have to create an animation based on a provided snippet of sound. In the first episode, my wife Jana put together a sound for me using stock assets. I then had to figure out what visuals could fit to it, and using a mixture of 2D and 3D animation, I created this short sequence.
Dead men tell no tales.
In this episode, I will receive a custom-made sound from my very good friend and talented artist, Ryan. I've not yet heard what it sounds like, nor have I given him any form of brief, except it shouldn't be longer than 5 seconds. So let's see what he can create for me.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan. Let's get into it. For this one, I wanted to create an intriguing soundscape that blends natural and futuristic elements. The forest ambience forms the foundation. I wanted to create an air of mystery by contrasting nature with technology. So to add an unexpected twist, I incorporated an ominous synthesized female voice.
Welcome, just relax.
Delivering a cryptic welcome message over a tannoy system.
We'll take good care of you.
I wanted to add some organic sounds to the piece to ground it and add texture. So let's add a horse and the clack of its feet against the stone floor. Let's see how Olive deals with that one. I also wanted to add some more movement to the piece, so I thought about incorporating some kind of cargo moving and shifting around, so I layered the rustling of a burlap sack being thrown onto the floor. I think these contrasting elements work well together. Now I'm going to throw this back at you guys. What did you envision when you heard this soundscape? Let us know in the comments below. Your interpretations might be completely different from what we intended, and that's the beauty of sound design. It's all about evoking emotion and sparking the imagination.
It's time to listen to what Ryan's made for me.
Welcome, just relax. We'll take good care of you. Welcome.
Very
just
atmospheric.
relax. We'll take good
Feels like
care of
it's outdoors somewhere.
Welcome,
So we got
just
bird
relax.
sounds and a
you.
horse.
We'll take good care of you.
There's someone putting some hay down towards the end of the clip. Obviously there's also a spoken voice, but it almost feels like a message over speakers, kind of like when you enter a train station, sort of loudspeakers. The horse, he had to put that in there, didn't he? My first impression is that we are entering a space as we get this welcoming message. And I feel like it might be a sort of a utopian city, or maybe like a big conservatory. It feels like a big open space, so having a lot of characters moving around could be quite cool. Plus a horse, of course. I have an immediate picture that sort of pops into my head. I'm gonna start sketching that out, and then we'll take it from there. The beautiful thing about making these challenges is that it forces me to create something I would probably not make otherwise. I have a lot of freedom, of course, but it has to fit this specific sound, so that gives me pretty clear directions. I also find that the most interesting aspect of this is that everyone listening to the sound will have some form of picture in their mind for it. Mine will be different from yours. Most of these will stay within our minds and never be seen by someone else. But this video allows me to visualize mine and share it with you guys. And sharing my creative process behind how I interpret the audio and transport it from my mind into something that you can consume, I think is fun. Animation is amazing in that way. Anything we can think of can be made into something others can see. Now, because our mind works differently from a computer screen, I can't just straight up download what I have in there and get an instant copy for you to see. It will have to go through a filtering process where I desperately navigate what's in there and slowly print it out through the tedious process of painting and animation. I really like the conservatory approach, where we have big arches over the city and a big open space with a plaza in the foreground. And I imagine us entering through a gate, and we will have the horse come towards us. And then I think the voice might come from maybe a hologram or a person at the center of the square. And something I think could work really well for this shot is to add camera motion to it, so it really feels like we're entering into the space.
The first step I take here is to block out the entire scene with basic 3D shapes. That allows me to move in the space and easily compose my shot. This process is relatively quick to set up. I've animated my camera, so this is a very rough layout of what the scene might look like in the end.
I will now define the environment by painting it. I don't want a classic 3D render here. All the 3D does is to give me a perfect perspective and the chance to move around within the space.
To paint my background, I use Photoshop. I will have to separate this painting into a few different elements, as we are getting parallax from a moving camera. But I like to begin by working quite flat and then deal with that stuff later. If I straight away worry about what layers I need to paint on and what element is in front of another, I lose the overview of what is most important, which is to make a good looking image. Cutting things out as well as repainting things are easy, but designing a picture, that is the tricky part. Here are my separate elements. We got the background city with a large square in front of us, the far distant sky with the conservatory arches that encloses the entire city, some more foreground trees, a pedestal that might have a person or a statue or something on it that speaks out the welcoming words, and then the close foreground gate and wall. All these I drop in on flat cards into my 3D scene. And since I have painted them from the perspective of our 3D camera, I can use a method called camera projection to reapply them to my scene. I have longer format videos both here on YouTube and on my Patreon page covering that method. You will find a link to that below. It's a great way to make flat paintings come alive. Since all the rendering has already been done manually by me through painting, the scene is now super quick to preview, and it requires almost no computing power to export it.
I've painted quite a historical scene here, but I'd like a bit of futurism or magic in there too. The voice almost feels like a general intelligence or some form of overviewing being in this space. So I need to represent that in some way. But I like that it's not taking a very classical futuristic approach. I could have gone for a more clean space, maybe a big white spaceship with a garden in it or something like this. So I like where this is kind of heading. And the characters that will populate this space, I think they can lean into that historical vibe too. So let's tackle that next.
I've made this simple 3D human base mesh that is really easy to texture and turn into different characters. I've used them for several small projects here on the channel, and my Patreons got access to them too. There are also videos on my Patreon page about how to use them. I think they work great for background crowds, for example, and you can easily apply Mixamo or Rococo animations to them, so they are a really fun asset to work with. I've made them into these Victorian-looking dudes with hats and suits. And I also turned this mesh into a female version too. I needed some big dresses walking around the square, I thought.
I have 2 more challenges I need to solve before I can put an end to this. I need to figure out where the voice is coming from, and then I need to animate a horse. So let's just get on with a horse, shall we?
I watched a bunch of videos on how horses walk so that my animation is somewhat informed at least. And I spent some time modeling and texturing this stylized horse. It's not even a solid geometry, pretty hacked together. The body is just a big blob and the head is a separate asset too. I just made a front and back leg and animated them separately, then flipped them around to the other side and offset the animation to create the full walk cycle. The key thing with this stuff when it's sort of stylized is to not overdo it, keeping the details simple. So therefore the texturing process gives it a pretty flat look. I've added it into the final scene, together with a man walking it up towards the gate we enter from. Now I just need to solve the character for the voice. I've been playing around with different options. I began by using the same character model as for everything else here and had it do this.
Welcome, just relax. We'll take good care of you.
I then thought about how I could texture this character to make it work with the scene. Is it a stone statue speaking to us? I don't really like that idea, and I don't think it fits the voice very well either. So I've scrapped that approach and now gone for a simpler thing. I've painted this crystal that could be floating above the pedestal. In After Effects, I can create a bunch of effects over that to make it feel as if it's emitting the voice. This sort of falls more in line with that idea of a magical intelligence that I mentioned earlier. To make it look like it's speaking, I used an audio spectrum in After Effects and I warped it and turned it into this effect. Lots of little particles and flares added to create that magical feel around it as well. And with some 2D animated birds flying through the scene, I think the challenge is complete. Let's show this to Ryan and see what he thinks.
Welcome, just relax. We'll take good care of you. Welcome, just relax. We'll take good care of you. Welcome, just relax. We'll take good care of you.
Olov, did a cat run over your keyboard when you were making this? Because, no, I'm only joking, mate. This is absolutely incredible. I love what you've done here. You've created a whole living, breathing world. It's insane. I love all the little details, the birds flying by. You've got the horse, of course. And that's a talking, floating crystal. Which, yeah, you'd get usually in a Victorian atrium set in the future. Whatever's going on in your head, man, it's pretty wild, but I like it. Yeah, it's incredible. Cracking work, mate. Thanks for getting me on.
Thank you, Ryan, for helping out on this project. Make sure you check out his work too. He's one of those creative masters that can just do about anything from sound to moving images. And he's also a great lad to have a pint with. If you enjoyed this video concept and would like to try to create your own animation using the same sound that I used, then we've provided that for you to download. Me and Ryan would love to see what you guys imagine, and if you do create something, make sure to tag us on Instagram or wherever you upload it so that we can see it. Now, big thanks to all my Patreons for their continued support. Make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.